but we talk a lot about what is violence and what is the necessity for violence, and is there a necessity for violence, and and this is coming back to the Ephesians reference you made about principalities, not flesh, and and what enforces the laws of the world is violence. It's just approved violence. If you don't do what you're told, local law enforcement will come and enforce that if you're breaking those laws. If you're going to outperform the local law enforcement, then the local military, the National Guard, is going to come in. If you're going to be bigger than the National Guard, then the main, there's an escalation until
right. Then NATO's going to come.
yeah, then it's biblical, but the crux
Sounds
of
like
that
that
is
game Grand Theft Auto where you fight the police and then the FBI and then the army.
yeah, and so it's funny, but it's still recognizing that these are levels of violence and enforcement that are, hey, I'm just bigger and stronger than you. I got more tools, and that's what wars are. The issue of wars, all these things. So back to this, we're going micro to macro, but back to micro to the individual. We have to abide by laws. We have to abide by rules. We have to have composure. We can't be um, without measure in our actions. But back to the core part of this conversation, right, is like, where do the responsibilities lie on each individual on that warriorship? And maybe to some people, even the word warrior is off-putting, because there are extreme disciples that I know that would never get kinetic or act unless harm was coming at them, or they're a loved one, essentially. But they're not the ones that are going to run into the burning building. No judgment on them. They're not going to the ones that are going to run toward gunfire. No judgment. But even these conversations start to shine a light on, in your small communities, who are those people? Who will you be able to rely on? Who as a leader would you entrust that, so-and-so would be the person that would watch that door? And then in speaking with Nikos earlier, I think you could also have a person that has been the kinetic actor 100 times successfully, ran toward gunfire, been the one to put themselves in harm's way, and then maybe the 101st time they have just reached their maximum and they are tapped out. Like, something stops them and they just can't, and so you never know how you're going to respond until you're faced with the scenario. But I feel like I'm diatribing here quite a lot, but I try to download a lot and then let people speak to what speaks to them, because it allows me to be transparent. I'm not trying to tailor an argument. I'm not even trying to corner anyone. I'm still trying to seek my own path, and then there seems to be resonance among everyone. All the men I speak with on this, there is some resonance of this conversation, but everyone has a different visceral reaction to it in some way, and some surprisingly so. Like I said, some of the tier one guys I thought would be more on board were actually more like, hey, you really need to check yourself when you're talking about this, because violence is no joke. And, crossing those lines is very spiritually risky, can change you forever, and so obviously in America, we have these active shooter scenarios in schools and their atrocities, and seldom are they handled perfectly, and then when they are handled somewhat perfectly, like this young man who's, I think, 30 or something, and happened to be concealed carrying his gun, and literally I might have the data wrong here, but I think he was 40 yards away from this active shooter, drew his pistol, put 9 rounds combat accurate on that person in 15 seconds, and ended that active shooter situation. I mean, that's almost as textbook as anyone could dream of. I mean, how many lives did he save? No stray shots. I mean, I got guys that are literally people I would want to fight my way out of hell with that are operators that said, I don't think I could. I don't think I could have performed that well. I mean, so as a Christian, you go, man, that dude must have been imbued with the Spirit to be able to pull that off. So in contrast, I think in a recent school shooting, there was a delay of over 20 minutes where the law enforcement failed to move, and in which time, how many more people were shot and injured? Again, this is political, and I'm not trying to get political. I'm sharing it as data, more so. But those are obviously violent examples of actual violence, from perpetrators, victims, and heroic efforts. But I guess I'm just bringing attention to them because they are things that happen in this world. And if we don't mentally think about them ever, we don't have a plan, when they do occur in our environments. And as a martial arts guy for my whole life, scenarios and then working with the military, you prepare, train, plan. So that's again why part of this, Nikos has kind of facilitated this as we may not have all the answers, but to be able to speak about the questions can continue a conversation, I guess, among people that listen to these things and stimulate better outcomes in the future, I guess, is the hope.